I want American families to understand what this legislation will mean for them. 4 simple things to keep in mind. And I'm borrowing Senator Stabenow's chart for this. It will lower costs for Americans. It will cut taxes for American families. It will create millions of jobs while tackling the climate crisis. And it will be paid for by wealthy paying their fair share. These are 4 goals. The American people support every one of them overwhelmingly. And in all phases, we will concentrate on communities that have been too often neglected, including communities of color and Native Americans, by making education, child care, health care, and housing more affordable. We can give tens of millions of families a leg up. By making sure that we can get our children out of poverty, and I thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership on that issue. We can provide ladders to families that haven't had them before and help them climb into the middle class. Many of the policies we're proposing were in President Biden's American Jobs and Family Plan, but some go beyond, like expanding Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing benefits, something that was left out of Medicare at the beginning and never should have been, and we can rectify it now. By cutting taxes for tens of millions of American families, we can expand opportunity and make it easier for parents to pass on a better life to their children and their grandchildren. By making further investments in infrastructure, we can create tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs. And by finally tackling climate change, we can spare our country and our planet the most devastating effects of global warming. Just this morning, a major new report from climate scientists at the United Nations concluded that the nations of the world have only a small window to, quote, prevent the most harrowing future. Prevent the most harrowing future, in the words of the New York Times. Without immediate and bold action, we are staring down ever-worsening floods and heat waves, droughts and sea level rise. The future of our planet looks bleak until we do something right now. And the budget reconciliation bill will do more to combat climate change than any legislation ever in the history of the Senate. That is a promise. And while my Republican colleagues regurgitate the same tired talking points about a Democratic spending spree, let me remind America that we plan to pay for this package by making the wealthy pay their fair share. When our Republican friends held the majority in this chamber, they chose to use the same process Democrats are using now, budget reconciliation, to give corporations and the wealthy a massive tax break. At a time of egregious income inequality, the former Republican majority rammed through a bill where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1%. 83% of the benefits. I have nothing against the wealthy. God bless them. They're doing fine already. But it's time to cut taxes for American families, middle-class families, not multinational corporations. To make our tax code more progressive and more fair. That is what Democrats are going to do. Under this plan, there will be no tax increases on small business or American families making under $400,000. We're going to help small businesses create many, many, many jobs. We're going to give American families a fair shot. We're going to tell middle-class families we're going to make it easier for you to stay there with your increasing costs of things like child care and school, college, and so much else. We're going to tell poorer families you're going to make it easier for you to climb into the middle class with things like the child tax credit and better health care and so much more. And we're going to confront the generational challenge of climate change head on. We're not flinching, we're not wincing, we're going right at it. And as bad as COVID was this year, and it was horrible, 5 or 10 years from now, every year climate change will make things worse and worse and worse, even worse than it was this year in COVID. Because when climate changes, it's such an overwhelming force that unless we do something now, we may not be able to stop it down the road. So, taking a step back, Mr. President, at its core, the Democratic budget is about restoring the middle class in the 21st century and giving more Americans the opportunity to get there. Unfortunately, the past 20 years in America have been a story of middle-class decline. We have all watched as globalization and technology transform the way our economy works. Industrial manufacturing jobs were shipped overseas. A global financial crisis cost Americans their homes and their wealth. Giant conglomerates wiped out mainstream businesses from Arizona to Arkansas, from Michigan to Maine. The cost of raising a family, everything from childcare to college tuition, has become exorbitant, almost unaffordable, even for those solidly in the middle class. And now, after the worst pandemic in 100 years, American families are just starting to climb out of the rubble and looking towards the future. We want them to look towards that future with hope and with optimism, not with sourness and anger that we have seen throughout the land, exacerbated, played upon by the previous president. What the future looks like, in large part, depends on what we do here now. These next few months are crucial for the future of our country, even for our democracy. What we need to do in Congress is to give our workers, our businesses, our families a chance to prosper in a rapidly changing world, a chance to have hope, a chance to restore that American dream, which simply says, if I work hard, I'll be doing better 10 years from now than I'm doing today, and my kids will be doing still better than me. When Americans lose that faith, lose that hope, that sunny American optimism that's been part of our character for centuries, bad things happen. Bad things happen to our democracy, to our relationships with one another, to just about everything. The social contract in America relies on the fundamental promise of economic opportunity, the chance, through hard work, to do better for yourself and then give your children and grandchildren a better life than you had. That's what America's all about. That's what we're trying to restore and revivify here. When that promise is broken, when that American dream is no longer shining brightly in the sky, when faith in economic opportunity evaporates, we are not the America we were meant to be. We are not optimistic and entrepreneurial and forward-looking. Instead, we are bitter and angry and backward-looking, and as a result, much more prone to the sway of demagogues like Donald Trump. The divisions in our country and our politics today have their roots in the decline of economic mobility. Now, the American people don't expect one piece of legislation to solve all our nation's ills. No single law can do that. But we have to start in a bold, strong way, rebuilding the basic social contract for middle-class American families and for everyone struggling to get there. A promise of equal opportunity and equality, helping middle-class Americans stay in the middle class, building ladders to help others climb into that middle class. And at its core, that's what this budget is all about. And we are going to take the first steps towards passing it very, very soon.